President, please be seated. The court is now back in session. I hand over the floor to the prosecutor to put the question to the witness. You may proceed.
Mr. President, thank you very much. Madam Sosachiat, was Pol Pot the best man at the wedding?
No, it was not actually at that time. There was somebody who was working with that office, got married, and he was only one of the guests.
For the year after your marriage, so that's 1973, were you with Khieu Samphan every day?
Yes, I met him every day.
You said yesterday that there were meetings where people of the base came to attend sessions and meetings. You also said, I quote, "Meetings took place, but Khieu Samphan stayed at home." Are you telling this court that you can state categorically that in the whole of 1973, Khieu Samphan never attended a meeting with base people?
According to the experience, I stay with him. He rarely attended.
So he attended some of these meetings.
I do not recollect it very well. I cannot say whether or not back then he attended it or not. It has been many years already, but overall, most of the time he stayed at home.
Have you ever found out in the 6 years that your husband has been in detention that a meeting of the Central Committee in Miak in June 1974 is an important issue in this case? Mr. President, I understand there was... Mr. President, I understand a word wasn't translated. I'm going to ask the question again. Madam Sochir, in the 6 years that your husband has been in custody, have you ever discovered that a meeting in Miak in June 1974 is an important issue in this case.
I am afraid I don't know.
Yesterday, at 14.20.14 hours, International Council for Khieu Samphan was asking you about the time you gave birth to your first child. And you said, and I quote, "And upon returning from China, he," that's Khieu Samphan, "had to spend about a month being close to me to help take good care of our first child, and he remained with us all along." The mid-afternoon break recommenced at
The President. Mr. Prosecutor, please hold on. The defense counsel is on his feet. You may proceed, counsel. Counsel Kunsamon. Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to object on this point because this was a misrepresentation of the words of the witness. At that time, this witness testified to the effect that these were the times when their child was a month old. It was not the time period that Mr. Khieu Samphan went to stay with his family for the entire month period.
Mr. President, I am quoting verbatim from the draft transcript that was produced this morning.
The President, International Counsel for Mr. Khieu Samphan, you may proceed.
Just to clarify, I think the best thing is to refer to what was said in the original Khmer. That, it seems to me, is the best approach to getting clarity here. What did the witness say in Khmer before the break? I think that's the best approach. Thank you.
Mr. President, we do not have the version of the transcript in Khmer. The only way, well, can I just consult with my colleague for one moment? Mr. President, my national colleague Chobon Song has the Khmer transcript. Can I please propose that she reads out in Khmer the extract and it is interpreted.
The President, you may proceed. Ms. Chawan, I refer to the same document number, and I would like to read the extract, quote, "and delivered the baby, and nobody assisted me. I was all on my own." Later, he apparently returned from China. He stayed there to assist my child for approximately a month. And end quote.
So, Madam Sasachier, we've now clarified what you said before lunch. Before the break. I'm now going to ask my national colleague to read the transcript in Khmer for an entry shortly after 15.14.50.
The President. Counsel for Mr. Kyu Sampon, you may proceed. Counsel Kung Samon. Thank you, Mr. President. I merely would like to ask the Chamber to examine this document again, because we have a video transcript as well. So I don't think it is an issue, but the mere reading of this transcript may pose a question. I would like to read it out the portion that the National Prosecutor has just read out. He stayed on to assist my child for a month. He stayed back to assist my child for a month. So I think it was a difference in the reading of the language. When Mr. Kyu Sampon came to assist her, she really meant that at that time her child was nearly a month old. That is not something difficult to understand in Khmer when we read it carefully.
Mr. President, can you please immediately give a warning to Kyu Sampon's National Council not to try and say what somebody meant when they were giving evidence? It is grossly, it's a breach of ethics. He must behave ethically in this court. And what he's just done is totally unethical. And he should be given the sternest warning immediately. This is absolutely outrageous.
Counsel, you may proceed. I would like to respond to the prosecutor, my learned colleagues, on this point. It is not the prosecutor who says that I am unethical. I am talking here about the reading, the way we read the sentence. And just now, the National Prosecutor read out this portion. The reading could pose a problem, as I mentioned to the Chamber, that it amounts to a problem. There was a video recording of this proceeding. I don't think that it is an issue. We can always refer to it. The President. Mr. Prosecutor, you may resume your line of questioning.
My national colleague is going to read out an extract in Khmer from the Khmer transcript that shortly after 15.14.50.
Quote, "Ever since he returned from China, he stayed with me for some months. It could have been 3 or 4 months. I do not recall exactly how many months, but it was the time until office B17, and then we stayed there for about a month, and then we left for B20, and then when we were at B20 we lived together, and then we left B20 for Mir. We resided in Mir after B20.
Madam Sochiat, why did you mention 1 month before the break and a number of months after the break? Was this another example of you getting it wrong and trying to make it right later?
Could you please repeat your question? If I may clarify it, to the best of my recollection, my husband back then returned from China. I tried to understand your question, and I would like to clarify this point. My husband returned from China, and when he arrived, my child was almost a month old. And then he stayed with me at B17 and then B20, and then we moved to Mir. We stayed together for approximately 3 months, almost up until the liberation day of Phnom Penh. That's what I can recall. That's what I stated in my testimony. I have no intention to change my statement. I recall my statement. That is what I testify in the court.
Can we agree on this? That you did not see your husband from the time of the birth of your son until 1 month later, which would be in June 1974.
With permission from Mr. President, I would like him to clarify the question, because he is trying to pick this event and that event from this time period to another time period. So I am being confused. The President, Mr. Prosecutor, I think that you understand this. Please try to simplify your question so that the witness find it easier to understand. And this is the advice given to all parties, that question be succinct and short, so that the witness understand fully the question, so that he or she can respond it appropriately. And please always refrain from asking lengthy question and complicated question that the witness might not understand it properly. This should be well understood by all parties involved, because this has been the instruction by the chamber all along.
Thank you, Mr. President. Madam Sosochiat, is it right that the first time you saw your husband after the birth of the child was 1 month after the birth in June 1974?
Yes, that is correct.
He had been on a tour of many countries and arrived back in Cambodia on the 13th of June. Did you go to the airport to meet him?
No, I didn't.
You cannot say to this court, can you, where your husband was for every day in June 1974?
When he returned, he came to see me. Then we stayed in Core 17. He stayed there until we left for B20 and then Mir. And then half a month later, we left for Phnom Penh. No, rather I did not know whether or not we left for Phnom Penh or so, but it was approximately half a month after we left for Phnom Penh.
Madam Sosochiet, you cannot categorically state to this court, can you, where your husband was every single day of June 1974?
No, I cannot. But at that time, he did not go anywhere. He stayed with me.
I'm moving on to your time after the evacuation of Phnom Penh. Your husband has told the co-investigating judges in document E3/27, English ERN 00156745, Khmer 001566615, and French 00156668, that he was brought to the railway station, and that he and Pol Pot stayed at the railway station for 1 month before going to the Silver Pagoda. According to your evidence yesterday, 1 week after Phnom Penh was liberated, you left K17 for Stockpole at night and met Q Sampong, stayed overnight, and then had to leave your child with So Hong's spouse, and that you then reached a train station where you had to cook for people there. What was this train station that you were at?
Yes, I prepare food for them.
There is a very grand railway station on Monivong Boulevard in Phnom Penh. It currently has a cream exterior with green, and it's a very attractive building. Isn't this the railway station that you were at?
The railway station? I do not understand. There was only one railway station or other railway station. I don't understand what. There was only one place, one railway station. That was the center of the railway station.
You said yesterday that you were at that railway station for over a week. Is that correct?
Yes.
But if your husband was there for a month and you were there for a week, you never saw him at the railway station. Is that right?
No, I never met him then.
When you went to see your husband at Stock Toll and stayed overnight with him, did he tell you that he had spoken with Pol Pot about the evacuation of the people from Phnom Penh and expressed his disagreement with Pol Pot?
I didn't know about that at the time.
From the time of your marriage on the 25th of December 1972 until the Vietnamese arriving on the 6th or 7th of January 1979, did your husband ever tell you that he had ever disagreed with Pol Pot?
No, he never told me anything about that.
Did you listen to a speech your husband gave, and I refer to E3/118, English 001 66994, French 008 45855, and Khmer 00846 The E3 number is E3/118. So, did you listen to a speech he gave on the 21st of April 1974, broadcast over the Phnom Penh domestic radio service, where he spoke of the victory, draining the population, draining the enemy, and the enemy dying in agony?
No, I did not listen to that speech.
Did Khieu Samphan ever in the democratic Kampuchea period talk with you about draining the population?
He talked about the evacuation of people as we were talking about our relatives and family members, and that's the limit of it, and he did not speak or broaden the subject. That's all I knew. He wanted to know about the whereabouts of the relatives. And allow me to clarify, he spoke to me about that after we came to live in Phnom Penh.
You have said earlier in your testimony that the first time you spoke about the relatives with Khieu Samphan was 1 year after the evacuation. Was your earlier testimony correct?
It is a correct statement.
I want to move on to another topic, K3. In the transcript of a video recording with your husband, D313, point 11, point 1, your husband said, and I quote, "My wife was always at the communal kitchen cooking food with a few other ladies. She regularly cooked food when meetings to perform self-criticism were held." Close quote. Is your husband right when he says this?
President Venez, please wait. The International Council for Khieu Samphan, you may proceed.
Oui, Monsieur le Président.
Yes, Mr. President. I would like to request something of my learned friend. Is this document on the list of documents that were announced? It appears that is not the case, and unless he specifies what this document is, he shouldn't just give a code very quickly. We should be very transparent. My question is for the prosecutor. Is this document on the list of the documents that he announced?
Well, Mr. President, to answer the question, the document I'm referring to is a transcript of a video recording. I've given the D number. It's not been downloaded onto any interface. Again, I couldn't necessarily anticipate that this was definitely going to be put. I just want to check about the Rule 80 list. Can I just take a moment? Yes, it was on the Rule 80 list. So in accordance with previous practice, I respectfully submit that given that it's on the Rule 80 list, given that I'm describing the document, given that it's a transcript, given that it's available, that this is a proper line of questioning.
President, you may proceed then.
Was Khieu Samphan right in that description of your activities at K3?
Pardon me, I don't really understand when you talk about the communal kitchen and about the self-criticism meetings. I don't understand the nature of the question, so I cannot respond to that. President, prosecutor, please repeat your last question to the witness.
Madam Sosochia, your husband told a journalist these words, and I quote, "My wife was always at the communal kitchen, cooking food with a few other ladies. She regularly cooked food when meetings to perform self-criticism were held." Close quote. Is your husband right in what he said to the journalist?
Witness, please wait. I notice the National Council for Khieu Samphan is on his feet. You may proceed, Council. Council, thank you, Mr. President. This is the same issue, and I'd like the prosecution to once again specify the EIN number or the page of that document.
Mr. President, this is turning into a farce. Responsible advocates advocate. They do not.
President, prosecutor, please adhere to the practice by the chamber indicates the EIN number, the page number, or the time allocation for that phrase. That is not the fault of the counsel for the defense. That is the instruction of this chamber. Please adhere to it.
The relevant timing is 00.38.48. Madam Sosochiet, is what your husband told the journalist right?
As the prosecutor put it, the cooking in the kitchen for the communal meal, that part is correct. But when you were talking about the criticism meetings, I don't understand that part. I don't really understand what you meant by that. I myself, I did the cooking, but I don't really understand what you meant by the criticism meetings.
I'm going to move on. In document number E3/37, English ERN 00156755, French 00156683, and Khmer 0015 6676 through 77. Your husband told the co-investigating judges that he lived at K3 with Nuon Chia, Ieng Sary and Son Sen. Is that correct?
Through my experience, that is not correct.
Carry on.
And why I say it is not correct? Because while we were living together, they were living there as well, but later on they had left. They stayed there for a short period of time, and for that reason I say that statement is incorrect. That is, while they're living together at K3. So you need to specify the time period, because while I was there, they were all living together, Pol Pot, Nuon Chea and Ieng Sary, but later on they had left. All of them had left.
In the video recording, or the transcript of the video, which is D313.11.1 at time marker 00.38.48, your husband said of his time at K3 the following words, and I quote. The ERNs, incidentally, are English 00815-884, French 008-26486, and Khmer 008-07463. So this is your husband speaking. As for daily life, Pol Pot and Nuon Chea had meals with me, and we had meals together. We did nothing separately. Close quote. Do you agree with your husband that when he was at K3, he did nothing separately from Pol Pot and Nuon Chea?
At that workplace, I only saw them together during meal times.
Mr. President, I'd like to move on to another topic. Madam Sosochiat, earlier today, reference was made to a statement by a man who you named in court as Leng Chung. He was Q Sampon's driver. The relevant document number for his OCIJ interview is E3/3 385. At question 6, he stated as follows, and I quote, "In 1978, they assigned me to drive Q Sampong, but I did not know who assigned me. When I drove for Q Sampong, I stayed in the K3 office near Q Sampong's house. At that time, Nguyen Chia and Ieng Sari also stayed in the K3 office. Their houses were next to each other, but faced opposite directions. My first question is, do you agree with this witness when he says that it was in 1978 that he began driving for Q Sampong?"
I cannot recall the exact period, but I think the statement you read is correct.
In the transcript of the testimony of a witness called Uan Tan, who was the head of security at K1, and I refer to the transcript of proceedings on the 13th of June 2012, E number E1/86.1, at time marker 11.52.44. He said K3 was the residence place for Nguyen Chia and Q Sampong, and the workplace was at K1. At K1, it was the workplace for all leaders. As for K3, everyone was to attend meetings at K1. My first question is, do you agree with Uan Tan that K3 was the residence place for Nguyen Chia and Q Sampong?
No, Nguyen Chia did not stay there. He stayed at K1. Only occasionally he came to K3.
I'd like to clarify that last answer by going back to something your husband said. It's E3/37. I've already given the ERN numbers. Because your husband told the co-investigating judges that he lived at K3 with Nguyen Chia. So has your husband got that wrong?
I did not see him staying there constantly. He only went there occasionally. And that's my truthful answer to your question. During the time that I was there, that I cooked, I occasionally saw him going there, but he did not stay there.
Your husband said in another extract of the same document, at French ERN 00156683, Khmer 00156676-77, and English ERN 00156755. Your husband said the following words, and I quote, "As for myself, I lived in K3 after I had stayed at K1 for 2 or 3 months, after we moved from the Silver Pagoda in the Royal Palace." And it's the next sentence I'd like you to concentrate on. In fact, most of the leaders lived in K3. Ieng Sary, Son Sen, Nguyen Chia. And as for Pol Pot, once in a while he stayed in K3. My question for you is, was your husband telling the truth when he said that he lived in K3 with Nguyen Chia?
President, witness, please wait. The counsel for Khieu Samphan, you may proceed. Counsel, thank you, Mr. President. What has been raised by the prosecutor is rather repetitive. But the question is, the prosecutor should specify the time period when Khieu Samphan or when Nguyen Chia stayed at K3. This is my request to the chamber, Your Honor.
Your husband was asked on this page the following question. What does the reference to K1 and K3 mean? And his answer was, most of the leaders lived in K3, Ieng Sary, Son Sen, and Nguyen Chia. Before the exodus that you described yesterday, did Khieu Samphan live with Nguyen Chia at K3? Yes or no?
Mr. President, with your permission, the question should actually specify the time period. President, witness, please respond based on your knowledge and based on the time periods that you knew. Witness, we stayed for a while at K1 and then all together came to K3. That is my best collection of the event. All of us came through K3, namely Pol Pot, Nguyen Chia, Ieng Sary, Son Sen, and the spouses came along as well. and there were other people who came along too, including Duan and Von Wade. So all of them came to stay at K3 altogether, and after a while they had left. And that is my response to this question.
Madam Sosatiet, I want to put a suggestion to you, and I want you to respond to my suggestion. My suggestion to you is this: that you and your husband have got together and concocted evidence about a supposed exodus from K3 by senior leaders in a deliberate, dishonest and cynical attempt to lie to this chamber and to mislead each one of these judges. What do you say to that suggestion?
President, witness, please wait. Counsel, you may proceed. Thank you, Mr. President. What has been suggested by the prosecutor is to put all the blames on the witness. And how can the prosecutor put such a suggestion to the witness? There is no respect at all by this prosecutor for this witness, Mr. President.
The purpose, can I respectfully suggest, Mr. President, of cross-examination is to put the prosecution case and test the credibility and reliability of a witness. I am suggesting to this witness that she is a liar and she should be given the opportunity to respond.
President, the objection and ground of objection by Counsel Kiew Sampon is not valid. The chamber needs to hear the response by the witness to the last question put to her by the prosecutor. witness, you're instructed to respond to the last question if you recall the question. Otherwise, the prosecutor can repeat the question. And please be reminded that this is the last question for this afternoon session. Witness, President allow the prosecutor to put the question again. President, prosecutor, please repeat your last question.
Madam Suchiat. My suggestion to you is that you and your husband have got together and concocted evidence about a supposed exodus from K3 by senior leaders in a deliberate, dishonest and cynical attempt to lie to this chamber and to mislead each one of these judges. What do you say?
Mr. President, allow me to respond. Through my best knowledge and my experience and my eyewitness of the events that remained with me till today, that is the living condition or the atmosphere of my husband with those people were for a limited time period. That's all I recall, and I am sure on that period, and I am not here to lie to the court, because my husband is a detainee here, and he's been detained here for 5 years, more than 5 years. I do not lie to the court. What I tell your honors is for your honors to know that I am truthful in my statement. And as I repeatedly said, they stayed together for a period of time, for some months, and then they had left. And that's what I accepted in my response to the question by the prosecutor. And that's the time period that I knew. And then they had left. And if your honors don't believe in my statement, or the prosecutor doesn't believe in my statement, then there is no need for me to testify here anymore. It's like the prosecutor seems to discredit my statements that I make before your honors. I speak of what I know, and I cannot tell the prosecutor what I do not know. President, thank you, witness. The prosecutor, you may proceed.
Mr. President, can I simply can I be absolutely frank with the court? I had done 12 pages of cross-examination. I am currently on page 9. I have 3 more topics to cover. Can I please ask for 25 minutes tomorrow morning at maximum? And can I add, obviously, the many objections, particularly on the Khmer translation issue, have added to matters this afternoon.
Oui, Monsieur le Président.
Mr. President,
Concerne, nous ne nous opposons pas.
as far as I'm concerned, we are not opposed to the co-prosecutor's request, but we'll need 30 to 40 minutes after he completes his examination. This is a very modest request on our part.
Oui, bon.
The prosecutor has made a request and the chamber will take a decision, but I do remember being myself in the same position that the prosecutor was in at one evening when a witness was being questioned within a common law framework. In other words, a series of final suggestions leading to the person in the stand being told they are a liar. What do you say? And the chamber said I couldn't proceed in that way, saying that that kind of question and the need to put the witness before a certain theory and thesis was not a part of the practice of a chamber of this kind. And so I'm a little surprised when I see the prosecution accusing the witness of being a liar. I quite understand that you are trying to put her before a certain theory, but it doesn't seem to be the same kind of treatment that is being meted out to the defense. So I don't really believe we need to continue with this exercise tomorrow. The prosecution has already been given extra time. He says he has pages and pages of work to do, but I'm afraid that's the same case for all of us. And I do believe that he has used his time as he wanted to do, and I believe that that is about enough now. Thank you.
Mr. President, can I give my learned friend this promise? I will not suggest tomorrow again that So Suchiat is a liar. That's been covered. And the matters upon which I wish to ask questions are factual. Thank you.
President, the chamber grants the request by the prosecution and by the lead co-lawyers. So we have one session tomorrow morning to put questions to this witness. The hearing today is now adjourned, and we will continue tomorrow, that is Wednesday the 12th of June 2013, commencing from 9 a.m. For the morning session, we will continue to hear the testimony of the witness So Suchiat, who will be questioned first by the prosecution and by the lead co-lawyers, and then by Nuon Chia's defense. And then we will hear the testimony of TCW 648. This information is for all parties, support staff, and the general public. Madam So Suchiat, the hearing of your testimony is not yet concluded, and we will continue to hear your testimony tomorrow morning. It could be for one morning session only, so you are invited to return tomorrow. Court officer, in collaboration with WISU, please assist the witness So Suchiat for her returning to her residence, and have her return to the courtroom to testify tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Likewise, the duty counsel, you are invited to once again come to the courtroom with your clients tomorrow morning. Security guards, you are instructed to take the two accused, Nuon Chea and Khieu Samphan, to the detention facility and have them return to the courtroom tomorrow morning prior to 9 a.m. As for Nuon Chea, take him through the holding cell downstairs with audio-visual equipment so he can follow the proceedings remotely. The court is now adjourned.